And I said, just put something down. So he thought a minute and thought a minute. And then he finally wrote on there, he said, always cut your own cow. Well, this is another one of my Matlock Rose stories. He was an awful good friend for an awful long time. And one time we were up at a cutting at Duncan, Oklahoma in the late 70s. And I was the last cutter in the last class. And everybody had kind of gone out the back gate and gone. Matlock was still there because I had asked him to help me. Dan Simpson was also there still. And so I had shown my horse and got along pretty good. And I had, I don't know, back then they didn't have clocks, so clocks that you could see. So I thought I probably had 10 or 20 seconds left. So I went to cut my last cow. And before I could even get in the herd, Dan Simpson kicked one out in the front. He was holding herd and kicked one out and said, here, take this one, Flynn. And I'd had to take it or it would be counted as a loss, so lost cow. So I took the cow, and then with not very much time left on the clock, she ran over me and I lost her. So I don't remember, it was long in probably the 90s, but it was at they had the Quarter Horse Congress up at Columbus, Ohio. And it was Matlock's, it was his anniversary or maybe his birthday, but they had a big celebration for Matlock up there. And my wife was up there helping put on the cutting. And so she brought me back a program of the Congress, and it had Matlock's picture on the front of it. So I wanted to get him to autograph it. So I took it to the next cutting where I thought he'd be, and sure enough, I got Matlock to autograph it. And he said, well, what do you want me to put on here? And I said, just write something down. That's just the way Matlock was. He was pretty short and gruff, and he just said, what do you want me to put on here? And I said, just put something down. So he thought a minute and thought a minute. And then he said, wrote on there, he said, always cut your own cow. He had remembered that day probably 25 years prior to that, when Dan Simpson had cut my cow. And he just thought he better write that down.
We hope that you've enjoyed today's horse stories here on GHN. We would like to thank this month's sponsor, the Mustang Heritage Foundation. Be sure to check them out. They're doing great things for the Mustangs. If you like what we're doing, be sure to press the like button. If you have something to say about what we're doing, be sure to go to the comment section below. Hit that bell if you want to be notified anytime we have new content. And of course, as always, please subscribe to GHN.